Earth was used to being overlooked. In the grand scheme of galactic politics, humanity had barely earned a footnote. No empire feared them, no trading consortium saw them as a profitable investment, and no warlords counted them among their strategic allies. To the wider galaxy, humans were backwater primitives, allowed to exist only because no one saw a point in bothering with them. That was why, when the Gorvax Dominion, a technologically advanced, war-hardened species, dumped a destroyed battlecruiser into Earth's orbit, no one batted an eye. It was an insult, really. The Gorvax had violated the Sol system, treating it like a galactic landfill. The ship, named the Ventrax, had been critically damaged in battle against the dreaded Vierol swarm, left barely intact after suffering what should have been a fatal core breach. Instead of properly decommissioning it, the Gorvax decided to jettison it into Earth's atmosphere, letting it crash into the Pacific Ocean like an unwanted piece of trash. To them, it was a minor inconvenience. To humanity, it was the greatest opportunity in history. The fall of the Ventrax. The whole world watched in awe as the massive Starship entered Earth's atmosphere, burning bright like a second sun. The friction superheated the hull, sending shockwaves through the upper atmosphere, visible even during daylight hours. The military scrambled jets to intercept it, unsure if this was an attack, a failed landing, or something worse. Satellite imagery and high-altitude drones confirmed that the ship wasn't responding to signals. It was in a free fall, plummeting toward the ocean at terminal velocity. For a moment there was terror. Then came the impact. The Ventrax slammed into the Pacific, displacing millions of gallons of water. A tsunami warning was issued across coastal cities, though miraculously the damage was minimal. When the waves settled, the wreckage remained, half submerged and sitting on the ocean floor like a monument to destruction. The Gorvax never responded. They hadn't sent a distress signal, made a recovery attempt, or even bothered acknowledging what they had done. They had simply discarded the ship and moved on. The salvage operation. For a full 6 months, the world debated what to do with the Ventrax. Politicians saw it as a diplomatic nightmare. The Gorvax owned the ship, but they had abandoned it without proper procedures. Did Earth have the right to claim it? Would taking it apart be considered theft? Or was it simply fair game? The military saw it differently. General Wyatt Monroe, leader of the Earth Defense Initiative, saw an opportunity unlike anything in history. The Ventrax wasn't just any ship, it was an advanced war vessel from a species centuries ahead of humanity. Its weapons, engines, and reactor held secrets beyond human science. This wasn't scrap metal. This was the key to Earth's future. And so, the salvage project began. Unlocking alien secrets. 4 months, Earth's best minds worked around the clock to decipher the ship's technology. It wasn't easy. The Gorvax used complex encryption to prevent reverse engineering. But humans were nothing if not persistent. Scientists at NASA, CERN, and top military think tanks worked together, cracking the ship's neural interface and gaining limited control over its systems. Engineers marveled at the Starship's FTL drive, a technology humanity had never successfully built. Even cybersecurity teams got involved, breaking through alien firewalls to extract data logs. One by one, the secrets of the Ventrax were uncovered. The first breakthrough. The first major discovery came when Dr. Elaine Carter, a quantum physicist, successfully restarted the ship's auxiliary power systems. For the first time since its crash, the Ventrax came to life. Lights flickered across the ruined consoles. Holographic displays stuttered and booted up. The ship's AI core, though damaged, reactivated for the first time since its battle with the Vierol. And that's when things got interesting. Because the Ventrax wasn't as broken as the Gorvax believed. Deep in the ship's core logs, hidden behind layers of encryption, humanity discovered something impossible. The Ventrax was equipped with an experimental next-generation weapons system that the Gorvax military had yet to perfect. A system so dangerous that the Dominion itself had kept it a secret from the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had just stumbled upon a weapon the Gorvax never wanted anyone else to have. And the moment the Gorvax realized Earth had activated it, they came begging to get it back. The galactic panic. It started with diplomatic envoys, appearing suddenly at Earth's orbital listening stations. They demanded to speak to Earth's leaders. They insisted the Ventrax was dangerous, that it had to be returned immediately. Earth refused. Then came bribes, offers of technology, wealth, and trade deals if humanity simply handed the ship over. Earth refused. Finally, the Gorvax threatened war. General Monroe simply laughed. Because by now, Earth had fully activated the ship's power systems. By now, humanity had begun installing Ventrax technology into Earth's own warships. By now, the Gorvax were too late. Earth's first warship? The Ventrax had been on Earth for 6 months, and in that time humanity had done the impossible. A team of scientists, engineers, and military experts had restored most of its core systems, cracked a fraction of its encrypted database, and successfully reverse-engineered some of its technology. But the true breakthrough wasn't just understanding the ship. It was making it their own. Instead of returning it to the Gorvax, or dismantling it for research, Earth's best minds had decided on a radical approach. They would repair the ship. They would upgrade the ship. And they would make it human. It wasn't an easy task. The Ventrax was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, built for a species with entirely different biology, neural interfaces, and operational protocols. But humanity was nothing if not adaptable. The first step was getting rid of its alien interface, replacing it with Earth-built command systems, a task led by Dr. Elaine Carter, who had successfully interfaced a quantum AI with the ship's neural core. The second step was refitting its weapons systems. The Gorvax had abandoned the ship thinking it was dead, but Earth had brought it back to life. And in doing so they had discovered something terrifying. The experimental weapon. Deep within the ship's primary weapons bay, scientists uncovered a sealed compartment, locked behind Gorvax military encryption. It took weeks to break through. When they finally did, they found a prototype weapon the Gorvax had never used in battle. A weapon so powerful, it had been scrubbed from the ship's official records. They called it the Graviton Lance. A cannon capable of tearing through planetary defenses in a single shot. A weapon designed not just for war, but for annihilation. It was, by all definitions, a planet killer. And now it was in human hands. The moment the Gorvax realized this, their tone changed overnight. They had gone from demanding the ship back to begging for it. The Gorvax panic. The first diplomatic message arrived 3 days after the Graviton Lance was activated. The Gorvax High Chancellor, leader of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, personally transmitted a message to Earth. It was not a threat. It was a plea. People of Earth, you do not understand what you have awakened. That weapon is forbidden by all civilized species. We beseech you, do not use it. Return the Ventrax to us, and we will reward your people greatly. The Earth Defense Initiative refused to respond. Why should they? For decades, humanity had been treated as an afterthought, a species so weak that the great empires of the galaxy didn't even bother invading them. Now, for the first time in history, one of those empires was afraid. And Earth wasn't going to give up its newfound advantage. The first test fire. General Wyatt Monroe stood aboard the Ventrax's command deck, watching as the final human modifications were completed. The ship had been rebuilt. What was once a dead hulk had now become Earth's first warship. Its hull had been reinforced with titanium alloy plating. Its shields had been modified with human physics, making them more durable than ever before. Its engine systems had been optimized, allowing it to reach speeds the Gorvax had never achieved. And its Graviton Lance? That was the final test. Earth needed to prove that the ship worked, that the power of the Gorvax had been claimed by humanity. So, on a classified test site beyond Mars, the Ventrax, now renamed the UNS Vengeance, prepared for its first shot. A single uninhabited asteroid was chosen as the target. The countdown began. Target locked. Powering up Graviton Lance. The ship hummed with energy, its core reactors diverting every ounce of power into the weapon. Outside the ship, the space around the cannon began to distort, gravity itself bending under the sheer force of the weapon's charge. For a moment, everything was silent. Then a blinding lance of energy erupted from the ship's hull. The asteroid never stood a chance. The beam struck its surface and tore through solid rock and metal, disintegrating the entire mass in an instant. A second later, the asteroid ceased to exist. And in that moment, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage. The aftermath. The Gorvax High Command received the test footage within hours. Their response was immediate. A second envoy was dispatched, this time with a desperate proposal. The Gorvax Dominion would recognize Earth as a sovereign power. They would grant humanity entry into the Galactic Council, an honor never before extended to a primate species. They would even offer military technology, trade agreements, and alliance treaties. All Earth had to do was return the Ventrax. General Monroe received the message. And for the first time since the Gorvax had dumped their ship on Earth, he responded. He smiled into the transmission camera and said just 2 words. Too late. The connection was cut. Humanity wasn't giving the ship back. Because Earth had just rewritten its destiny. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The ultimatum. The Gorvax Dominion was in full panic mode. The moment Earth had test-fired the Graviton Lance, the highest levels of the Dominion's military and political leadership went into crisis meetings. The ship they had carelessly abandoned, considered scrap, unworthy of retrieval, had now become one of the most dangerous warships in the galaxy. And it was in human hands. Their second diplomatic request, which had offered technology, trade, and a peaceful alliance, had been flatly rejected. Now the Gorvax had a choice. Would they attempt to take back the ship by force? Or would they accept that humanity had just become a major player on the galactic stage? There was only one problem. The Gorvax weren't the only ones watching. Other empires take notice. The Ventrax incident had drawn the attention of every major galactic power. The Dracari Imperium, a species of warlike reptilian conquerors, saw this as an opportunity, not to attack Earth but to recruit them. The Varleen Ascendancy, a telepathic race known for their advanced AI networks, suddenly began sending envoys to Earth, curious about what else humanity could accomplish. Even the Zenriki Consortium, infamous for their ruthless corporate wars, saw potential in human ingenuity. The galaxy had once ignored humanity. Now they were terrified of them. And the Gorvax Dominion was losing control of the narrative. They had dumped their trash on Earth. Earth had turned it into a god-killer. If the Dominion didn't act soon, they would lose their place as a dominant superpower. And so, they made their choice. The Gorvax High Chancellor authorized a full-scale retrieval operation. The humans wouldn't give the ship back? Then the Gorvax would take it by force. The interception. 1 week later. The UNS Vengeance, once the Ventrax, was preparing for its first deep space voyage. A crew of Earth's best pilots, engineers, and tacticians had been assigned to operate the ship, now modified for human control. Everything was set. Until the alarms blared. Multiple warp signatures detected. Hostile configuration. It's the Gorvax. 6 Dominion warships had just exited hyperspace on the far side of the moon. The Gorvax weren't negotiating anymore. They were coming for their ship. General Wyatt Monroe stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the holographic display as the Gorvax fleet moved into attack formation. Their message came through a moment later. Humans, you have stolen what is rightfully ours. Surrender the warship now or we will take it back by force. Monroe smiled. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't recklessness. It was confidence. Because the Gorvax had no idea what they were up against. They thought they were retrieving an abandoned ship. They had no clue that the UNS Vengeance had been transformed into something far more dangerous. And they were about to find out the hard way. The first shot. The Gorvax fleet moved in, their ships locking onto the Vengeance with precision-guided plasma cannons. This wasn't a warning. This was an execution. But before they could fire, the Vengeance struck first. Fire the railguns. The command was calm, controlled, as if Monroe were simply ordering coffee. But the result was devastating. Twin hypervelocity railgun rounds launched from the ship's forward batteries at relativistic speeds. The Gorvax never saw it coming. The lead destroyer was hit dead center, the round tearing through its shields like paper, shredding its entire command structure and ripping the vessel in half. The second ship attempted to evade, but the second round clipped its propulsion core, causing a catastrophic explosion that sent debris spiraling into space. 2 ships destroyed in seconds. And the battle had barely begun. The counterattack. The remaining 4 Gorvax ships went into full combat mode, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire at the Vengeance. But they weren't fighting the old Ventrax anymore. They were fighting a human warship. The Vengeance's new shields, designed with human ingenuity, absorbed the energy blasts with ease, dispersing the impact before it could cause critical damage. Inside the ship, the crew barely felt the hit. And then it was their turn. The Graviton Lance fires again. Monroe leaned forward, staring at the largest Gorvax battleship. Charge the Lance. The crew didn't hesitate. Once again, the Graviton Lance began drawing massive amounts of energy, the space around the ship distorting from the sheer gravitational force. The Gorvax command vessel realized the danger too late. The beam fired. The battleship was completely vaporized. 1,000,000 tons of metal, armor, and Gorvax soldiers, gone in an instant. What was once a proud fleet had been reduced to wreckage in under a minute. The last 2 Gorvax ships? They did the only logical thing left. They ran. The message to the galaxy. The battle lasted 62 seconds. the aftermath lasted far longer. The moment the battle was over, Earth broadcasted the footage to every major galactic empire. The message was clear. Earth was not to be underestimated. The Gorvaks had thought they were teaching humanity a lesson. Instead, they had just given them the greatest gift imaginable. And humanity wasn't just keeping the ship. They were keeping the war. The aftermath. The Gorvaks' dominion had never suffered such a humiliating defeat. Not only had they failed to reclaim the warship they abandoned, but they had also lost an entire battle group in under a minute. Their pride as a dominant galactic empire had been shattered. Their allies began reconsidering their loyalties. Their rivals saw an opportunity to challenge their position. And worst of all, the entire galaxy had seen it. The footage of the battle, the vengeance obliterating the Gorvaks' fleet, had been broadcast across every major communication network. The Gorvaks had once dismissed Earth as a primitive world. Now they were terrified of it. And humanity? They were just getting started. A new era begins. The United Nations Military Command had no illusions about what came next. Earth had just made a statement. Now the galaxy would respond. Some would seek alliances. Others would plot against them. And the Gorvaks? They weren't going to forget this defeat anytime soon. If anything, this was only the beginning of a much larger war. But humanity had no intention of backing down. The final transmission. Before the Gorvaks could retreat into hiding, Monroe had one last message to send. The Vengeance powered up its main transmission array, broadcasting on all Gorvaks-controlled channels. The entire Dominion hierarchy, from their leaders to their citizens, would hear this. Monroe stepped forward. His face was calm, his voice measured. To the Gorvaks' Dominion. You abandoned this ship. You left it for dead. We rebuilt it. We made it stronger. And now it belongs to us. You thought you could take it back by force. You failed. Now you have a choice. Leave Earth alone, or learn firsthand what happens when you make an enemy of humanity. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The transmission cut off. The galaxy watched. And the Gorvaks knew. They had awakened something they could never contain. The future of humanity. With the Vengeance fully operational, Earth now had its first interstellar warship. More would follow. Humanity had been given technology once thought impossible. They had been handed a weapon meant to destroy them, and had turned it against their enemies instead. Now the stars awaited, and Earth was ready. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic HFY stories. Rocket.